So the question is the effect of the pandemic on the Israeli ecosystem. So actually, there's some bad news and some good news that we had. And the corona brought a lot of problems, but also brought some opportunities. The main worries were that some of the markets completely disappeared. I mean, I don't need to tell you that hospitality, travel, aerospace, and others, basically, there was complete stop. There's not much that we can do about it, but so some companies really closed, and if they had enough runway, enough money to withstand the problem, they continue R&D, but there's nobody to talk to. The second big problem, which is for everybody, is the inability to travel. And Israel was relatively locked down, and also many people would not accept Israelis, and Israelis would have to be in the quarantine. So big problem. And since Israeli markets for Israeli tech are very far from Israel, it is a problem. In Israel, about 80% of all the high-tech companies are B2B, so they do not sell to mass market. So there is some adjustments that can be made, but it's still, the ecosystem is still trying to figure it out. There was an early concern about the investments, that the investments in Israel, about 85% are done by foreign investors. And so we were worried that all these investments will dry up. It turns out, on the one hand, the good news is that we had a record year. 2020 is on its way to surpass 2019, which was record year before that. So this is good news, which was very surprising. Bad news is that early stage has been hit very hard. So majority of those investments came in the late stage. And so the government is trying to help through through various measures on the early stage, but it's not as easy as it sounds. And the last thing was the lockdowns. This industry actually knows how to work remotely much better than most other industries. And so some of the companies basically, even large companies announced that they're not coming back to their offices till the next July. And everything goes on. We as an organization have been not working for the last 7 months. We probably closed the building for maybe 4 of them, 4 or maybe even 5. But there are also corona-related opportunities. In the short term, there are all kinds of companies in Israel that saw dramatic increase in sales, either due to technologies, all kinds of gaming, etc., but also due to corona. At the beginning, Israeli companies are very quick to pivot when they see opportunities, and so many pivoted. We had about 70 companies that were relevant for corona in April. Today we have close to 300. So that was, if anybody is interested, you can go on our website, which is called Corona Tech, or on the website, which is called Startup Nation Finder, and type coronavirus or quarantine tags, and you can get access to all the companies that are relevant. But there's been also long-term benefit because technology is going to be in much, much larger demand going forward. That represents an opportunity. We can see that in terms of the valuations of technology companies that are traded.
So
okay, so I presume that you're referring to our report, the digital. Sorry.
Gary, may I ask you to pronounce what you are typing in the chat so we all know what is the question about?
All right.
And we can hear you. You are zoomed out, it feels like.
Sorry. You do this when you're ready.
Sure. Recently, the organization that Eugene is CEO at, that I mentioned before, Startup Nation Central, released the report that's called the new digital age, that in a very deep but clear way describes how Israeli tech ecosystem can help to shape the post-COVID-19 era. According to the sector's overview, we see that project change demand compared to pre-corona in most sectors are positive, like digital health and ed tech. So I ask from Eugene to share his personal vision on those sectors and how will pandemic change those industries. Thank you, and we will take.
All right. Okay, so usually crises, large crises are accelerating many technological processes that were supposed to happen anyway, but were slow because of the status quo and the inertia. And Corona is no different. And so there are three main areas where I think the changes that were either supposed to happen or didn't even know that they were supposed to happen, but were needed. And so one change that has been forced on all of us is the remote everything. So whether it's work, health, education, we have now weddings and funerals done online, and people can join without traveling. All of that needs a lot of tech. And that is something that's going to be from the tech that connects it, from the tech that makes it possible to enjoy it rather than being really tedious, and tech to protect it. So there's lots of that. And the second force is the shortening of supply chains. The world got accustomed over the last maybe 20 to 30 years to the idea that you can produce anything anywhere and move wherever you want to go. And so the Corona was a rude awakening that basically showed everyone that we have dependencies on political and health systems of other countries. And many countries in the West decided that's just not going to cut it. So we're going to have to move lots of production capacity from countries like China to countries that are either within the markets or close to the markets. And that actually represents, for Ukraine and for Israel, represents an opportunity, because for Ukraine, it's locale and the capability of being manufacturing hub and tech hub. And for Israel, only tech hub, because we don't have manufacturing capability. And the last part is the sustainability, because it feeds on the other two. We are looking for less travel, lower environmental impact of agriculture and manufacturing. We need more efficiency. All of that requires technology. And so, the examples are easy, whether it's in health, where we broke psychological barriers, and now the technology that was already there and everything was ready now can be utilized, because before the doctors did not want to see patients not face-to-face, and the patients were afraid to go to the doctor not face-to-face. Now, both of them are comfortable. Systems are rapidly adjusting to that.
Okay, so another question that I want to address is that we see the demand and the need of innovations from multinational companies, agricultural companies, from government, etc.
Can you show me the question again? Because you showed it to me for about 1 second, and I'm not as fast in reading as I used to be.
Yes. Okay, of course. So the question is how to implement innovations as fast as it's possible.
Okay, so innovation is hard in general, and especially when you want to implement innovation in a system does not necessarily want to have it implemented. And so that is a difficulty that is not unique to any country or any organization. So that requires three things. It requires long-term view, because innovation requires organizational changes and the mindset changes. It requires the pressure from the very, very top of the organization. And third, it requires a set of tools that are complementary, that you cannot just say. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Tony Blair, for example, when he wanted to introduce innovation, strategy, and implementation of his reforms, he introduced two organizations in his prime minister office, one of which was strategy, and another was implementation and innovation. And what he did is every minister of his had to give a scorecard on those two issues in every month. So that was the only way to move it forward. And when his successor came in, and this was not in his agenda, he basically dismantled this whole thing and went back to the business as usual. That, you know, there was a huge difference. If you don't have pressure from the top, continuous pressure from the top, that demands constant reporting and constant progress, it's not likely to happen. The similar thing I saw in a very, very large insurance company. This is one of the largest insurance companies in the world. That was coming, the CEO and the chairman of the board were coming to us in Israel, and we were arranging for them to meet with various experts and companies, startups, etc. And after the third time, they came with their entire management team, which were 40 people that are managing their countries around the world. I asked the CEO and said, look, I'm sure you have some people that are dealing with innovation. You as a CEO have other things to do. And he said to me, look, my organization is a very conservative one, and I don't think that it will survive unless we innovate. And the only way for me to do innovation is to actually push it from above. And if I don't understand what I'm pushing, I cannot do it. So that's my suggestion to any organization, no matter where it is, or the government. All right. Thank you. Have a great summit. Bye.